All right. Good afternoon. Good afternoon for the Tuesdays with Dr. J. Lo. So dito, what are we going to discuss today?
Well, today we're going to discuss gut health. Yung title natin is "Oh My Gut." So the things that we don't really know about the gut, it will be uncovered today by Doctor Wellness himself, Dr. J. Lo.
Yes.
Hey guys,
Yes.
how are you?
Hello. Hello, Doc.
Hi.
So, Doc J-Lo, or Dr. Joel, what are you going to discuss today?
Yeah, basically we're going to discuss about gut health because a lot of chronic degenerative diseases stem from gut issues basically. So there are some naturopaths who actually say that all diseases start from the gut. So it's really important to really take care of our gut. And the gut, by the way, consists of everything from the mouth to the anus. So that would include the esophagus, stomach, small intestines, and the large intestines, as well as other organs such as the liver and the pancreas.
Wow. Okay.
All right. So, welcome. Good afternoon, guys. If you're watching this on the replay or on the live stream, you can put your comments below in the Facebook or YouTube channel, and then we'll ask Dr. Joel to answer them. Okay, let's start. Dito, any more questions?
Oh, we're fine. I'm excited to get on the topic right away.
Yeah, it's a long topic, so we'll give the show to you, Dr. Joel.
Yep.
Okay. And so if you do have any questions, feel free to butt in, okay? Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, so basically, this is what our body consists of. We have basically 30 trillion cells, but do you know that our microflora in our gut actually outnumber our own human cells by a factor of 10:1? And do you also know that microbial DNA outnumbers your human DNA by 100:1? So if you think about it, we're more bacteria, or consist more of microbes than our actual cells. So there's this naturopathic maxim or saying which says that death begins in the colon. And there are some holistic dentists who would say that death actually begins in the mouth. So same thing, it's all part of our gut. So there are some doctors that actually have this principle in practice that if they doubt something, basically treat the gut. So why focus on the gut? So we have to focus on the gut because it produces 3/4 of our neurotransmitters. So more so than the brain. So you've probably heard of the saying, thinking with our gut, right, guys?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so
of course.
Basically that happens because, again, a lot of these neurotransmitters or chemicals are actually produced in our gut. So that's why there's this saying, thinking with our own gut or thinking with our gut. And it's actually called our second brain as well. According to Chinese medicine, our gut is our second brain, while the heart is our third brain, such that there's also another term called thinking with our hearts.
Doc, question.
Yeah.
Where is the gut exactly? Is that where the stomach is, or not exactly?
Yeah, it's a whole gastrointestinal tissue or gastrointestinal system. So it starts actually from the mouth up to our anus. Yeah,
so it's
the whole alimentary tract. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so there's another trivia. So our gut also contains 2/3 of the immune tissue. So people don't really think about that. People think of the gut mainly as an organ for digestion or absorption, but actually 2/3 of our immune system resides in the gut.
Wow. Okay.
And then also our gut houses a genome 100 to 150 times larger than our human genome. And what organ has a metabolic activity greater than our liver? Basically, that's our gut. So majority
Okay.
have digestive related symptoms or diseases. Majority of people experience symptoms by the age of 30. So usually the most popular drugs that sold during that period in one's life are the antacids. So that signals that the first thing that actually declines as we age is the production of digestive enzymes. So the gut is also a highly sensitive organ with multiple common ill cells that lead to dysfunction. And the gut basically has the most diverse and mutable clinical manifestations. So these are the key functional roles and aspects of the gut. So it's important for digestion and absorption, intestinal permeability. So we gotta consider gut microbiome or the intestinal flora. It's also good for immune modulation. And then also the nervous system or enteric nervous system.
Wow. So almost all na pala. It's very critical for our entire health, no?
Yeah, practically everything.
Practically.
Yeah. So if you look here, the skin surface area is 1.5 square meters. If you compare it to the respiratory mucosa, it's 100 square meters. So that's a lot, right? But the GI mucosal surface is 30 to 40 square meters. So consider that, because when you think about how extensive your skin is. So halos 40 times more yung mucosal surface for the gut.
So it's like when you section everything up and you lay it flat on a surface, it's like 30 to 40 square meters.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it's as big as my apartment. Wow. Okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so these are things to consider. So the actual digestion, well, it actually begins in the mouth, but in the stomach, it takes about 2 hours. So when I ask my clients to take supplements that have to be taken on an empty stomach, so ideally they should take it before meals. And if they forget to take their supplements that are supposed to be taken on an empty stomach, then they should have to wait for 2 hours after a meal.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the entire process of absorption takes about 4 to 6 hours. So in this diagram, it shows you that digestion actually starts in the mouth, especially for carbohydrates. There is something called salivary amylase, which actually helps digest your starches. It's further degraded into small intestines to double sugars by something called pancreatic amylase. So this is an enzyme produced by your pancreas. And then to absorb it into the body or through the intestines, there's this so-called brush border enzymes. If you look at the proteins, it's actually digested in your stomach by acid and pepsin. Then it's further digested in your small intestines into, with the help of enzymes such as trypsin. And then it's absorbed into your the lumen of your intestines. Then finally, there's fat, which is actually digested by your enzymes called lipase. This actually also begins in the mouth because there's something called salivary lipases, and also pancreatic lipases. So digestion actually occurs in different parts of your digestive system, and absorption primarily occurs in your small intestines.
Okay. And anyway, you'll probably answer this, Doc, but I'll put the question on.
Sure.
Does probiotic work? What are the benefits? I'm sure you'll cover that in the presentation. Okay na
Yeah,
ba,
I will
Yakult?
discuss that in a little bit. But probiotics are part of our normal flora. Usually, it's wiped off when you take antibiotics. And antibiotics, yeah, we usually use that for any type of infections, but it also could come from the food that we eat, because sometimes during the process of like growing your, let's say, poultry or your beef or pork products, some farmers actually use antibiotics just to make sure that these animals are healthy. Although long term, those are not beneficial because they could end up in our bodies.
Okay.
Yeah. So again, the digestive system is important for mechanical breakdown. So it happens in your mouth when you chew your food. And ideally, according to some holistic nutritionists, you should chew your food like 20 times before you swallow. But I don't think everybody does that.
Yeah,
Sometimes
that's
like,
somebody does that, chewing
yeah.
30 times.
Counter.
Yeah, it happens because a lot of people are on the go. They're like in a hurry, sometimes going to work. So they just eat quickly. And when you eat cooked foods, that's actually devoid of enzymes. So you actually destroy enzymes when you cook your food. And then as we age, we are actually producing less enzymes. So this it's a double whammy if you eat cooked foods and you don't produce enough enzymes.
Okay.
Yeah, so absorption of carbohydrates, protein, lipids, and nucleic acids occur in a passive and an active manner. And it's regulated by your central nervous system and your enteric nervous system. And it actually integrates hormones and paracrines to coordinate digestion. So these things are the processes that happen in digestion and absorption. So inadequate mastication, that means you're not choosing your food well. So that could lead to problems. Hypochlorhydria is a condition in which you're not producing enough hydrochloric acid in your stomach. So when that happens, people could actually feel symptoms like heartburn or indigestion. What happens is that doctors give antacids to suppress the symptom. But actually pardon me?
Si Dito.
Yeah, so according to naturopathic yeah, so according to naturopathic circles, if you're having indigestion or heartburn, it's because you're actually not producing enough acid. The presence of acid in your stomach would actually close the sphincter that separates your esophagus and your stomach. So that's the signal for that sphincter to close. So what happens if you give antacids is that you're just making things worse. You may suppress the symptoms, but long term, it could cause more problems. So in holistic medical circles, what we do if a person is suffering from indigestion or heartburn is that, of course, after ruling out ulcers and stuff like that, we would then recommend certain things like apple cider vinegar, hydrochloric acid, or other digestive enzymes. So then there's pancreatic insufficiency. This happens if you're not producing enough digestive enzymes. Bile insufficiency would lead to problems with absorption of fat. And then if you have brush border injury caused by, let's say, medications like non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs or aspirin or steroids, then that could lead to problems with malabsorption. So intestinal permeability. Go ahead.
Yeah, the intestinal permeability. Oh, I'm sorry, you're not yet there. I thought you were showing that already. So
Okay. Yeah, so intestinal permeability is really important because long term it could cause problems aside from malnutrition. It could also be an underlying cause of autoimmune diseases, which unfortunately is just being treated with symptomatically with steroids. But in holistic medical circles, if a person is or has an autoimmune condition, what we need to do is first look at the gut, because sometimes it could just be due to a food intolerance or sensitivity. So these tests are available locally now.
So, Doc, intestinal permeability is actually leaky gut, right? Leaky gut syndrome.
Yeah, it's otherwise known as leaky gut. Yeah, so if you look here, increased intestinal or epithelial permeability for antigens is a crucial primary or secondary event in the pathogenesis of several disorders, including autoimmune diseases, obesity, and other chronic degenerative disorders such as arthritis. So in a healthy gut, you have this healthy villi, so you have good absorption, and you also got these healthy cell junctions. When there's damage, basically undigested food material are actually absorbed into your system. So instead of being small food molecules entering into your body, you get to absorb bigger molecules. And then the immune system thinks of these big molecules as foreign. So it starts attacking those molecules, eventually leading to different problems such as autoimmune disease or disorders. So when we treat autoimmunity, we actually look at underlying causes. Besides leaky gut, it could also be due to heavy metal toxicity. It could be due to chronic infections. So these are the things that we also look into. And also, as it says here on this slide, the autoimmune process can be arrested if the interplay between genes and environmental triggers is prevented by reestablishing intestinal barrier function. So there are a lot of things that you could do to help heal the gut. And I discuss those later.
Okay.
Yeah. So possible causes of impairment of intestinal permeability. Sorry for the misspell there. But they consist of nutritional factors, infections and toxins, hygiene hypothesis, lifestyle hypothesis, and endogenous factors. So these are the triggers for increased intestinal permeability. Of course, there's poor dietary choices. If you always eat fast food, these are more pro-inflammatory. It could cause damage to your intestinal lining. When you're under chronic stress, that could also cause damage. Of course, infections. One of the more popular ones is H. pylori. You probably heard of that. Yeah, so
what is
a
that?
lot of people who have chronic dyspepsia or peptic ulcer disease. Sometimes they have H. pylori infection. So it's important that your doctor checks for that, because otherwise, if you don't eliminate that, this problem would continue to recur. So then there's inflammation, systemic disease, low stomach acid could also do that, toxic exposure, ischemia or low oxygen due to poor circulation. And then, of course, medications such as antibiotics, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, and steroids could all do that. So with altered intestinal permeability, it could lead to food allergy, sensitivity, and intolerance. Of course, you're not absorbing nutrients that could lead to malnutrition. And this LPS is lipopolysaccharide infiltration. This is something that's produced by gram-negative bacteria. So all of these things would cause elevated total toxic and antigenic burden. It would cause immune activation and systemic disease, including autoimmune diseases such as lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, etc.
Okay.
Wow. So lupus pala is gut. No.
Yeah. That's one of the possible underlying causes. So we now go to gut microbiota or microbiome. So there are
Microbiome,
100 trillion microbes that actually resides in our gut.
Wow.
So it's actually 3 times more than our cells. So just imagine this, as a scientist at a conference claims to have found a new organ in the human body. So it's comparable to the immune system in as much as it is made up of a collection of cells. It contains 100 times more genes than the host. It is host specific, contains heritable components, can be modified by diet, surgery, or antibiotic. and its absence, nearly all aspects of host physiology are affected. So basically, that's your gut.
Okay.
So by young adulthood, both humans and other mammals support one of the most complex microbial ecosystems of the planet, on the planet. So just as a side note, it's important for us, it's important to have vaginal delivery when a woman is giving birth, because actually when the baby passes through the vaginal canal, they're actually exposed to the microbial flora, which should actually eventually help with their immune system. So those babies who undergo, who are born through cesarean section are not exposed that much to the microbial flora. So that's one of the things that could lead to less healthy baby. Yeah, so those who actually who are born through cesarean section. And of course, milk, breast milk is also important, especially the first milk that a mother produces. It's called colostrum. Yeah, so that's really important for babies' health.
Okay.
So in our bodies, commensal microorganisms inhabit all the barrier surfaces, with the largest number in the distal ileum and colon, and they outnumber the human cells by a ratio of 10:1. So commensal organisms, they don't do any harm. They just live there in our gut. But with certain processes, like for instance, if you take antibiotics, it could actually become opportunistic. So what happens is that they could become causes of disease if there's an imbalance in the flora. With clear effects on physiologic, immunologic, and metabolic processes in human health, aberrations in the gut microbiome and the intestinal homeostasis have the capacity for multisystemic effects. Changes in microbial compositions are implicated in the increasing propensity for a broad range of inflammatory diseases, such as allergic disease, asthma, inflammatory bowel disease, obesity, and associated non-communicable diseases. So changes in the microbial composition could actually lead to a lot of different conditions, including problems with weight or obesity. And other, as mentioned here, other organ problems with other organs.
So, Doc, just to clarify, when we talk about gut health, you talk about the microbiome, meaning you have to make it healthier or have it more balanced. Ganun ba? That's how you should think about it.
Yeah, you should have optimal microbiome because, again, changes in the composition of microbiome has systemic effects. We have this brain-gut connection. So people who have problems with their gut sometimes would manifest with central nervous system problems. We see this in autistic kids who have problems with their gut, as well as their, of course, how they interact with their environment or with their family.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So these are the effects of intestinal microbiota on human physiology. So it's important for immunocompetence. So it's really important for your immune system, basically. It's also important for GIT surface maturation and GIT functional maturation. It's important for nutrition. So it's also good for metabolism of xenobiotics. These are toxins that we're exposed to. It's also important for drug disposition. And as you can see here, it's also important for behavior. So people don't think about that, but there's all these connections that you see by just altering the microbiome.
So, Doc, you said your gut microbiome is it just specific to the gut, the microbiome, or is there other microbiomes in the body?
Yeah, there are different microbiomes. Like for instance, we have a microbiome in the skin that protects us from infections, like skin infections. their microbiomes in your in women's vaginal flora. I mean, vaginal area. So yeah, in different areas, there are different microbiomes.
Okay, got that.
Yeah. So you could see here, just as loss of honeybees from orchards or addition of an invasive species to a lake creates significant harm for the surrounding biosphere, so too it appears that small shifts in our microbiome caused by today's unhealthy diets can reverberate through human health. The mammalian immune system, which seems to be designed to control microorganisms, is in fact controlled by microorganisms. So just think about that, right? This is one good book. It's called The Gut Balance Revolution by Dr. Mullen. It's been shown that a healthy microbiota early in life is critical for the proper development of your hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis. So it has to do with hormonal health. Improper development or dysregulation of your HPA axis can lead to an exaggerated stress response, impaired cardiac or heart functions, alterations in your neurotransmitters or brain hormones, and increased caloric intake.
Wow.
So even during infancy or like childhood, it's really important to really take care of our gut. It's better to start early rather than wait till we have symptoms as we age.
Okay.
Doc, this is really interesting, this book. It says, boost your metabolism, restore your inner ecology, and lose the weight for good. So if you actually fix your gut, you can actually lose the weight for good.
Exactly. And by the way, I've seen clients who have a lot of skin problems. And sometimes if you just detox the gut, their skin would actually clear up. Like I have this clients who have adult acne who've been taking antibiotics for years, but after cleansing the gut and balancing their microbiome, their skin actually improved.
Wow.
So if you look here, the composition of microbiota can shape a healthy immune response or predispose to disease. So you have to consider host genetics, lifestyle, early colonization, so birth in hospitals, altered exposure to microbes, then medical practices such as vaccination use, antibiotics, hygiene. These all could lead to issues called dysbiosis. And when you have dysbiosis, it could lead to an increase in certain cells in the body that cause disease. And then this Treg cells is actually what leads to health. So symbiotic microflora in the gut. So they're involved in metabolic activities, trophic activities, protective activities. So you look here, gut dysbiosis, inflammation, and altered gut barrier function could lead to the formation of pro-inflammatory cytokines. These are chemicals that could cause more inflammation. You probably heard of cytokine storm with COVID-19, right?
Yeah. So, what is it about? Yeah.
It's the production of pro-inflammatory cytokines. So these are chemicals that would actually cause more inflammation. So in the process of trying to protect the body, sometimes the immune system goes haywire. So when that happens, it could actually damage your normal cells as well. So that's what a cytokine storm is all about.
Okay.
So if you could see here, endotoxemia, or the presence of a lot of toxins in the blood, could lead to systemic inflammation, which actually could affect your blood-brain barrier function, leading to problems with thinking. So there's another good book called Missing Microbes. So evidence suggests that our welcome residents do not recover completely from antibiotics or are replaced in the long term by resistant antibiotics. So overuse of antibiotics could be fueling the dramatic increase on conditions such as obesity, type 1 diabetes, inflammatory bowel disease, allergies, and asthma, which have more than doubled in many populations.
Wow. Ganun ba
Yeah.
yun, Doc?
Pardon me? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I mean, so hindi ka dapat nag-antibiotic
Basta-basta.
masyado.
yeah, because sometimes it's not the fault of the doctor. Sometimes kasi it's the patients who ask for it. So sometimes the doctors just oblige. Pero a lot of there are actually natural antibiotics that do not harm your microbial flora in the gut. So
Like which one?
sometimes
Like which
it's,
one? Sorry.
examples.
Yes, examples.
Yeah, examples are like olive leaf extract, oregano, colloidal silver. These are like natural antibiotics. So these are things that doesn't harm your microbial flora. Whereas certain antibiotics that are a broad spectrum, they kill the good germs and the bad germs. And when that happens, it could lead to fungal growth. And usually we see this in women who like take antibiotics. After the course of antibiotics, they would develop like a vaginal yeast infection. So good for them, because at least they know that they have a fungal infection. Whereas in men, after taking a short course of antibiotics, they could develop fungal infections, but we don't have like
An
discharge
indication.
or things like that. So sometimes you would have like a fungal overgrowth, but it would take years before it would manifest in men.
And where would you usually see it, Doc? Where would you usually see the
Fungal
infection?
overgrowth?
Yeah,
Usually it happens in the gut, this fungal overgrowth. So atopic, inflammatory, and autoimmune diseases have been linked to gut microbiota dysbiosis. And in some cases, significant associations have been established between these diseases and the intake of antibiotics during early life. So sometimes you don't manifest symptoms right away. Some people may manifest symptoms when they're older, when their immune system starts to break down. That's when they begin to manifest this symptoms of illness.
Okay.
So once antibiotic treatment has stopped, the microbiota may present a certain degree of resilience, being capable of returning to a composition similar to the original one. But the initial state is often not totally recovered. In fact, antibiotic-induced microbiota alterations can remain after long periods of time, spanning months and even years. So that's why people who take antibiotics need to take probiotics and prebiotics after the course of antibiotics, just to make sure that they don't develop problems later on.
So, Doc, what is your protocol like? So, for example, if I went to your clinic and asked you, Doc, I don't want to take antibiotics, but I feel like I'm getting sick. What would you recommend, like as a protocol for?
Yeah, there are different options. People could try the natural antibiotics that I mentioned earlier.
Colloidal silver, oregano.
Yeah, oregano, olive leaf extract, or colloidal silver. Otherwise, they could take some. They could also try intravenous vitamin C. This one is really good for acute or sometimes even chronic viral infections. So those are options. But
so, Doc, do you couple that?
Take,
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah,
you were saying
to take antibiotics. Ideally, they should do a culture and sensitivity of the specimen. Let's say you possibly have a urinary tract infection. Ideally, get a culture and sensitivity so that you don't try an antibiotic that doesn't work, because sometimes that happens. You're just given an antibiotic, but it doesn't work, so you're given another course of a different antibiotic. So ideally, do a culture and sensitivity.
Okay.
So dysbiosis is the condition of having microbial imbalances on or within the body. It's most prominent in the digestive tract, but it could also occur on any exposed surface or mucous membrane, such as the skin, vagina, lungs, nose, sinuses, ears, nails, or eyes. So concept consolidated by Mechnikov back in 1908. These are other terms: autointoxication, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth or SIBO, subclinical infection. So dysbiosis is not so much about the microbe as it is about the effect of that microbe on a susceptible host. It is about the relationship between host and microbe, basically its function. So you're not looking for a classic infection. So in one patient, it may present with dermatitis. In another, it may present with peripheral neuropathy or inflammatory arthritis. So the symptoms may vary. It depends on what your weakest link is. So let's say your weakest link is your skin, then a person would manifest with skin symptoms, such as dermatitis, atopic dermatitis, or eczema.
Wow.
So a properly functioning gastrointestinal ecosystem is involved in defense and repair, assimilation, energy production, detoxification and biotransformation, transport, communication, and structural integrity.
Ang dami
Dami. Yeah,
That's
dami
very...
Yeah, so when you have problems with structural integrity, it could lead to production of biofilms and increased permeability. For defense and repair, it could produce in pro-inflammatory cytokines. Problems with assimilation could lead to obesity. Problems with energy could manifest with N-butyrate, short-chain fatty acid production. So problems with phase 3 detoxification happens when you have problems with your gut. And then transport, that has to do with GI motility and this enterohepatic recirculation. And then finally, mast cell degranulation. So the next part is...
Basta kailangan natin maayos yung gut natin.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because it affects a lot of things. So gut is also involved in immune modulation and inflammation. So complex diseases arise from the combined action of many genes and environmental factors. So there's a field in medicine called epigenetics. So basically, our genes are affected by our environment. So there's this analogy. Let's see if I can remember it. It's our genes are the trigger. No, yeah.
Do it. You can do it.
Yeah, it's something like the genes are the trigger, and then the barrel has to do with the environment. I'll think about it, and I'll tell you guys later. Anyway, so the mucosal immune system is a critical line of defense. So we produce this substances that actually have antibacterial or antimicrobial properties. One example here would be your hydrochloric acid. So if you have enough hydrochloric acid, that would protect you from bacteria that you're exposed to when you eat certain foods.
Okay. Doc,
yeah,
meron palang question kanina. What are the risk factors of dysbiosis?
Pardon me?
Ito yung question. What are the risk factors of dysbiosis?
Yeah, I did mention that earlier.
Yun na yun.
But,
Yun na yung
yeah,
marami.
Yung marami. Yeah, basically intake of antibiotics, poor diet, stress, certain medications like non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, and steroids. So these are the things that could lead to dysbiosis.
Okay. All right.
These are lymphoid tissues. Basically, they're part of your gut that has that it's also involved in your immune system health. People are very familiar with the appendix. So that's part of our gut-associated lymphoid tissue, and that consists of the intestinal mucosa, Peyer's patches, and the appendix. So the appendix has some function. It's not just some part of the body that gets inflamed and you have to remove it. So it has there's a function. There's a reason why it's there.
So kung wala na, Doc? Kung wala ka na appendix?
Naalis na din yung appendix ko when I was in 6th grade. Yeah, so there are a lot of people who don't have appendix, who don't have appendix.
Okay, we're going to this, diba? How to detoxify our gut. We're going to that, Paul. Okay, go.
So the gut-associated lymphoid tissue, or GALT, is important for immunological defense. It's the largest lymph organ in the body. It's 50 to 70% of the immune system, and immunoglobulin-producing cells are located within the GI tract. It's populated by T cells, B cells, plasma cells, activated T helper cells, and macrophages in loose clusters. And again, it consists of the Peyer's patches, appendix, and the intestinal lining, basically. It's the first line of defense to the majority of antigen exposure, including dietary molecules and infectious agents. So that's one of the main, it's part of the innate immune system. So compared to what we call adaptive immune system. So this one of the initial defense systems of the body. It determines whether what we eat is a friend or foe, basically. So these are the components of the gut-associated lymphoid tissue. And then there's secretory IgA, which is the predominant immunoglobulin or antibody released onto the surface of the GI mucosa. What it does is that it binds to and neutralizes microbes and other antigens before they even cross the mucosal barrier. So actually it starts out, you get this in the mouth as well. So sa mouth pa lang, you will get the secretory IgA, which actually would protect you against microbes already.
So in terms of COVID, does it really help out in protecting?
Yeah, the innate immune system, which includes the gut, would actually be helpful in protecting against not just COVID, but a lot of like pathogens that we get from the environment.
Okay.
This one has to do with inducing tolerance. So we found a lower prevalence of reported allergy in children aged 7 to 8 years from families who use hand dishwashing instead of machine dishwashing. The effect was further potentiated if they also ate fermented food or bought food directly from farms. So these lifestyle factors reduce allergy development via increased or more diverse microbial exposure, stimulating the immune system to develop in a more tolerant function. So yeah, living in a plastic bubble is not good long-term because we train our immune system by actual exposure to germs. So like nowadays, wearing masks like the whole time may not be a good idea. Like if you're outside alone and away from other people, then you may
remove it.
Yeah, you may remove it. If you're alone in a car, you don't have to wear a mask. If you're at home, you don't have to wear a mask. So And also, like sometimes we use a lot of like disinfectants. So disinfectants, like if you use a lot of alcohol, if you use alcohol all the time because of possibly touching a surface that may be contaminated with some virus, then it could actually lead to an imbalance in your skin microbiome as well.
Wow.
Why is that, Doc? Because it still absorbs
Yeah, basically
in your body.
what happens is that you kill all the germs in your skin as well as the good germs if you keep on using disinfectants like alcohol.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I remember there was this. I don't remember exactly the story, no, but someone was telling me that when you use hand sanitizers, and
Yeah.
if you use the not so good kind or whatever, or the stronger alcohol, that it actually affects your. Is it your liver or your kidney?
Well, alcohol, it has some long-term, what do you call this, side effects. But yeah, if you have a lot of exposure to it, like nowadays, if you're, especially for people who are working, who have to constantly use alcohol when they encounter something, that could lead to problems eventually, because you actually need this microbiome in your skin to protect you. But if you keep on using this disinfectants, it could actually wipe out your soldiers, quote unquote, that resides in your skin.
Okay.
So immune cells encountering a foreign antigen become activated and release an array of factors leading to the well-known clinical signs of inflammation. That's rubor, redness, calor is heat, dolor is pain, and tumor is swelling. So those are the classic signs of inflammation.
Okay.
So if you have too much inflammation, that also leads to premature aging. That's why one of the supplements that I recommend, especially for the aging population, would be the omega-3 fatty acids, because it actually has anti-inflammatory benefits.
Okay.
The stronger predictor of disease progression is the extent of chronic systemic immune activation. So nervous system. So what do we know about the enteric nervous system? So it's organized in a complex structure that controls motility, or the peristalsis, blood flow, uptake of nutrients, secretion, and immunological inflammatory processes in the gut. So in recent years, the role of enteric glial cells has extended from that of simple nutritive support for enteric neurons to that of being pivotal participants in the regulation of inflammatory events in the gut. There's now robust evidence that gut bacteria influence the enteric nervous system, an effect that may contribute to afferent signaling to the brain. So there's this gut-brain connection that most holistic or integrative doctors know, are familiar with. So it's that part of the autonomic nervous system with a unique ability to function independently of the central nervous system.
Okay.
So again, in Chinese medicine, our gut is known as our second brain, because again, there are a lot of neurotransmitters in the gut, and a lot of nerve endings. And the third brain, according to Chinese medicine, is our heart. That's why you also get the expression thinking with your heart, or pag-iisip sa puso.
Yeah. So, Doc, yung
like, puso sa pag-iisip.
Sometimes when you're trying to make a decision, Doc, there's such a thing as gut feel, di ba? Parang,
yeah, exactly.
Is that the gut feel and intuition?
Yeah, that's where that expression came from.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, thinking with your gut. Then those are people who think with their hearts. Some think with their brain. Yeah, so in a lot of Tagalog dramas, they have this expression of, like ginagamit ang puso or ginagamit ang utak or
Okay.
Okay, so an acute psychological stressor increases small intestinal permeability in a subset of healthy humans with endocrinological signs of stress axis activation. So sometimes a big stress or a big event could actually be a trigger for a person to express some symptoms. Like kunyari, one of the main things that could cause, or main events that could cause, let's say, ulcers or problems with your gut would be divorces or a death in the family. So these are events that could actually cause problems in the gut. So there's this actual, it's called PNEI. So it's psychoneuroendoimmunology. So it tells you how our thinking could actually affect our nervous system, our endocrine system, and our immune system. So there's this whole connection.
Wow.
So nervous system effect on GI function. So alterations in GI motility, increases in visceral perception, changes in GI secretion, increase in intestinal permeability, negative effects on regenerative capacity of GI mucosa, etc. So, and then what may cause dysregulation of the gut environment? So these are triggers and mediators. So nutrient insufficiencies. So if you're eating bad food, that could actually lead to gut problems. Taking medications, which are mentioned earlier, like NSAIDs, cytotoxic agents, antibiotics, antacids. Then there are infectious agents, such as bacteria, viruses, parasites or protozoa, helminths. Then, of course, there's alcohol. There's localized free radical production, food allergies, sensitivities, and intolerances, traumatic brain injury, diminished hydrochloric acid secretion, diminished enzyme secretion, diminished bile secretion, psychological and emotional stress. And then there's hypoxia or exposure to extreme altitude. This is molecular mimicry. So basically, certain microbes have almost a similar structure, or as it says here, may possess similar antigenic determinants as human tissue. Example here is the bacteria called Klebsiella and ankylosing spondylitis, which is an autoimmune disease. There's Proteus, another species of bacteria, or genus rather, and rheumatoid arthritis. Then there are many intestinal microbes that's been implicated in systemic diseases such as Salmonella, Shigella, Campylobacter, Yersinia, and Proteus.
Wow, ang dami nun.
Madami. Yeah. So, so this is everything that we discussed about. So triggers, nutrient insufficiency medication could actually lead to local reaction, which would cause physical disruption of the mucosal barrier, leading to increase in mucosal permeability. When that happens, bacteria, yeast, protozoa, LPS, toxin translocation, so it enters the whole system, the whole circulation. Then food protein translocation. So when you have this in your circulation, it would cause immunologically mediated reaction, leading to signs and symptoms of systemic illness. So in summary, a healthy gut has proper nutritional substrate, micronutrients and phytonutrients that are important for maintenance of commensal flora. It's also important for immune modulation, repair, and regeneration. So proper mastication is important. So you gotta have healthy teeth. You gotta have adequate digestive juices, enzymes, and pH. pH, we discussed that last week. Intact intestinal epithelial barrier function, balanced host bacteria ecology, autonomic balance. And this is a sick gut. And it's caused by poor diet, dehydration could do that, interaction with medications, which I mentioned earlier, infections could do that, toxins from metals, molds, especially foods that have been stored in your fridge for 3 days or beyond. Inadequate digestive enzymes and stomach acid, imbalanced ecology, impaired intestinal permeability. So gut function, simplified approach. So immune function or defense and repair. It's also good for endocrine function, nutrition and digestion. It's also good for detoxification and elimination. So these are our conclusions. The GI system is an integral and central node of the complex web of functional medicine. Dysregulation of the GI system can have a profound impact on health. Our patients are best served if we observe the interrelationships between digestion and absorption, intestinal permeability, GI microbiota, immune modulation and inflammation, and nervous system. So there you go.
Okay. So, Doc, so how do you detoxify? Kung let's say, alam mo nang you have a problem with the gut, how do you usually fix it?
Yeah, of course, aside from doing a history and physical, I may recommend some functional tests depending on what the patient presents with. There are some tests that could be done at your local lab. For instance, yung what we call H. pylori antibodies or antigens. So if a person presents with chronic dyspepsia or chronic ulcers, I may test for those. If a person may present with, let's say, problems with obesity or not losing weight, then they could have a food intolerance. So food intolerance tests are available locally as well. And then those who have problems with, let's say, possible fungal overgrowth or parasitic infections, there's something called stools for ova and parasite, but it's not that accurate. If you really want to see how your digestive function is, how your digestive function is working, or if there's any imbalance in your microbial flora in your gut, you could go for a CDSA or a comprehensive digestive stool analysis. So
the H. pylori tests are usually fecal, no? They're fecal tests.
It's actually done through the blood or also through the breath test.
Oh, breath test. Okay.
Yeah, or through the blood. Those are the easiest way. Some gastroenterologists, they may do a biopsy and they may find some H. pylori there.
So, Doc, okay, so about antacids, kasi I remember I used to take a lot of that, the omeprazoles, and I noticed that, yes, you're right. You take it and then it relieves you temporarily, but then it comes back. And when it comes back, it's worse. That's when I started experiencing the backflows with the acid. Is that because of the sphincter you were saying that it only damages your sphincter, the connection of the stomach to the esophagus?
Yeah, the signal that makes the lower esophageal sphincter close is an acidic pH in your stomach. So if you're not producing enough acid, the sphincter won't close. So what happens is that the gut regurgitates. So sometimes you could feel the sour taste in your mouth. Diba? Pag underlying issue, what you want to do is acidify the pH in your stomach, and that would make the sphincter close. So that's why we may recommend hydrochloric acid, and you have to titrate it according to how the patient responds. Sometimes if a person doesn't want to do the hydrochloric acid, they may take things like apple cider vinegar and enzymes such as bromelain or papain, which are plant enzymes, and those are acid stable.
So they have different functions pala, Doc. Like if it's the apple cider vinegar, it's actually to raise the acid in your stomach so that the sphincter closes. But then when you take something like for alkalinization, it helps naman with the total body pH, which is totally different.
Yeah, they're different.
Okay. So it doesn't necessarily mean that if I take apple cider vinegar, it's for my pH.
Well, that would help make your the pH in your stomach more acidic.
Okay. So if I
But again, the pH of your blood is slightly alkaline. So
okay.
you have different pH levels in different parts of the body.
So Doc, knowing what I know now, if a patient or someone in my family goes to a doctor and they recommend the use of antacids, what could they use in place of antacids that can actually help them with their acidity levels?
Yeah, like I just mentioned earlier, they could try using apple cider vinegar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, people could take bromelain or papain. These are derived from pineapples and papayas, respectively. So these are supplements that they could actually take.
And then Doc, quickly lang, yung you said probiotics, prebiotics, the symbiosis of the probiotics and prebiotics. The prebiotics, like you said before, was the food for the probiotics so that it survives the gut flora.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct? So
Yeah.
The use of actually good supplementation is needed for the cure of your gut so that you
Mm-hmm.
can actually fix it.
Yeah.
So a leaky gut, when you say a leaky gut, the permeability starts from the mouth going down to the anus, so it's all the way down. And it's not specific.
When you say leaky gut, it has more to do with your small intestines.
Okay.
So that's where absorption actually takes place. So to repair a gut, I may put a patient, like, for instance, on a food rotation diet for several months, sometimes up to a year. So we do the food intolerance test, and if they have foods that they're intolerant to, then they have to stay away from it from 6 months to a year. But they can gradually reintroduce them if there's some nutritional value to it. Then aside from that, they would have to take probiotics as well as digestive enzymes and an amino acid called L-glutamine. It's an amino acid that actually helps repair the gut. So that's what consists. That's what this program consists of.
So, Doc, the marketing of Yakult is actually really good because it's like a household name. Whenever you talk about probiotics, it's the Lactobacillus shirota strain from Yakult. So, is that like something that you would recommend? Like,
well, it has a lot of sugar in it, so I rest my case.
All right, Doc. Oops, Anton, you're muted. Anton's muted.
Sorry. May comment si Wilbur lang. So we'll bring it up. A healthy gut contributes to a strong immune system, correct, and help prevent some cancers and autoimmune diseases. And is it true, Doc, that unhealthy gut can increase your risk from COVID-19?
Yeah, because it's actually part of your innate immune system, part of your initial defense. So if a person's innate immune system is low, then they're more prone to develop, that would make them more susceptible to any type of infection, whether it's bacteria, viruses, parasites, or fungi.
Okay. All right.
Wow.
So, yeah. So marami ka natutunan dito. Ikaw ang maraming sakit sa gut eh.
Madami. It's a good thing that I have the slides. I can just go back through it. But now I understand the relationship of the gut and the brain, that axis, that connection. You were saying about the gut feel, di ba? And I remember you saying, Doc, yung high stress or even something in your life that is how do you say it? Like heartbreaking, no? Kunwari, you go through a breakup, parang suddenly you, parang nasusuka ka or you're, it's really all connected. So, yeah, I'm.
Yung ano lang, Doc, yung for me, so it's the gut is really complicated, and what you're saying is if you experience problem in the gut, it's really you have to test to figure out what's wrong with it. No?
Yeah.
But just to maintain its healthiness, what I hear you saying also na you can what are the simple things we can do to improve the health of the balance of the microbiome? Ano ba?
Yeah,
I know you
basically
mentioned before you take sige, sorry. Go
yeah,
Doc.
yeah, it all boils down to the basics, like good nutrition. So basically more of a slow food rather than fast food. It's been a trend in France over the last decade or so where people eat slow food rather than fast food. So basically traditional ways of cooking is better than fried food. So for instance, yung mga nilaga, sinigang, mga ano pa ba? Basta the traditional way of cooking is healthier. Then meat in general is more pro-inflammatory compared to a plant-based diet. And among the meat, ang pinaka-least na inflammatory would be fish.
Okay.
Yeah. And then among the fish, you want to eat on the smaller side of things. So yung mga dilis, tawilis, sardinas, those are actually safer to eat than the bigger fish. Because the higher you go up on the food chain, the more chances, the greater the chance that you are exposed to heavy metals like mercury, for instance, that you see in big fish like tuna, swordfish, or mackerel.
Okay.
So proper nutrition.
Okay.
And
for sorry, Doc. Go ahead.
Yeah, if a person is not able to take probiotics, they could actually just eat more fermented foods. Like, for instance, yung mga kimchi, kefir, achara. So those are things that actually help improve our microbiome as well.
Okay. And so you don't recommend any of the probiotic drinks in the market, no? Because they're too high in sugar. Correct.
The commercial ones, madaming sugar.
Are there probiotic na hindi mataas na sugar?
Actually, there are available probiotics in capsules, so they don't add sugar to it.
Okay.
Sure. You've tried this, right, Doc?
Oh yeah. I take that on a regular basis.
Yeah. So what can you say about this product, Doc?
Well, I've been on it for maybe a couple of years now as part of my maintenance. So I do that even though I'm not symptomatic. I just want to make sure that my gut is healthy and functioning well. So so there.
Thank you so much, Doc. So Yoli Pure. Oh, hindi kita yung Pure. There you go.
What does it do? Dito.
It's Anton, it's the probiotic and prebiotic symbiosis relationship. So this is what I took to correct also yung mga problems with the gut. So I like Doc Joel, we take it for maintenance of the gut flora. And moving forward, like you said, no, yung mga yogurt also helps, no, Doc? Yogurt, as long as it's not the sweet kind, it has to be all natural.
Yeah, some of my mentors would recommend plain yogurt. Then you could just add fruit if you're not happy with the taste.
Okay.
All right. Last question from my end. Is bad breath sign of bad gut?
Yes, it's a sign of toxicity.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's important to really address well, there's this it's called food combining. So, but not all people are able to do this because it's kind of strict. So if you eat, let's say, fruit, you have to eat them away from your main meals because it would putrefy or it would rot there. So that's why it could or it could lead to bad breath. However, bad breath could also due to problems with your dentition or your teeth, but it could also due to an imbalance in your microbial flora.
So is that why, Doc, when you're like being presented with fruit and vegetables and then a main dish, you start with the fruit first and the vegetables before you take the proteins?
Yeah. So you could do like meat and complex carbohydrates, but you don't do meat and starches. But again, in Asian culture, you actually do meat and starches, like meat and rice. But again, it depends, yeah, certain populations are more tolerant to certain food combinations.
Okay, so we got a comment from Michelle. Learning a lot here, most especially about fish. Good thing. I love the smaller ones. Yeah. Kami rin, mahilig ko sa
So
mga
sometimes
dilis.
someone with the smaller ones, the problem is the uric acid content. Paano yun? Do you need to correct your uric acid first? And then that's when you take the sardines and...
Yeah, well, just to let you know, uric acid is an antioxidant.
Okay.
When it's too much, that's when it causes problems.
Okay.
Yeah.
You actually need the uric acid in your body.
Yeah, because it's an antioxidant. And if it's too much, that's when it could lead to arthritis or problems in the kidneys. And this is something that people have to be screened for in their regular laboratory work, because a lot of times people don't have it checked. But if it's elevated, it could lead to kidney dysfunction eventually, if it's really high all the time.
Wow. Dami ko natutunan, Anton.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, my Rach said, I read somewhere that bad breath is also caused by the diet you do.
Yeah.
Okay. And everything, sabi ni Paul, everything in moderation. All right. I think that's it. I learned a lot from the discussion. It's a bit long, but I understand how the gut works now and how people call it the second brain and why is it important for our overall health system. Anything to close, Dito?
No, I'm good. Doc, ikaw, but you might have some last words for our viewers about our gut.
Well, just take care of your gut. Go back to basics with a proper diet, hydration, avoiding medications as much as possible, especially if you don't need it, and just use natural remedies if possible, and work with your doctor if you have any medical conditions.
Thank you so much, Doc.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
So much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dito. Thank you.
Thank you, Anton. Yes, thank you very much.